Hey, okay, so I just wanted to go over my third observation, which was at the Forest Springs Forest School in Camino Island, and I did an observation this last Friday. I met with Heather, who is the lead teacher, and then there was two other teachers. There was Aaron and Sarah. There were 10 students, and the weather was wet. It was raining, but all the students, including the teachers, had rain gear on, which was really cool. They met in a field at Forest Springs. What was it called? It's Forest Springs Preserve. It's like a 50-acre land preservation on Camino Island, and there's a place to hike, but there's a really big field that that all of the students met in, and it was such a big field. There was a huge tree, a really big tree that they were all kind of congregating around, and so they ran from the parking lot. When I first got there, parents were dropping them off, and the students would set their stuff down on a tarp and then get their jacket on, and they all ran over to this big tree where they all kind of played together. They were in that field before the day began for about 40 minutes. And during this time, I did a lot of observation. So there was a lot to see. Two of the teachers stayed back, and one of the teachers went over to where all of the children were. And as we walked over there together, she noticed that two kids were kind of being rowdy, and they each had a ball, and it looked like they were hitting each other, or they were going to start hitting each other. And one of the teachers, the assistant teacher, hollered out from across the field. She hollered out, "Hey, time out." And they both stopped, but she did it in such a loving, she had such a loving tone about it. But they both stopped, and she walked immediately over there and crouched down and said, "It looked like you guys were going to hit we're fighting, or we're hitting. Is everything okay?" And the students had said that they were play fighting, and she was like, she almost over exaggerated this, but she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to hear you guys weren't fighting," or something like that. And she then proceeded to remind them that they're supposed to use their gentle hands, or to keep their hands to themselves so that they don't hurt other people. And then the two kids just kind of went off and ran off playing together. Another student was there that I don't think the teacher recognized, and she immediately called out and said, "Hey, what's your name? I don't know you, and can you introduce yourself?" And so the student did, and the teacher did, and she said, "Oh, are you just here for the day?" And I think there was just some miscommunication, because that student, I don't think was that student didn't end up staying. But while they were there, they had asked her, that teacher, "Hey, can you help me climb this tree?" And she said, "Nope. Here's the deal. You can climb the tree if you can do it on your own." So the students tried, and the other students were just kind of running around or talking to each other and playing tag and chase, and the kids were just trying to climb this tree. And a different child ended up climbing the tree and got up there on the big branch. And it was, the bottom of the branch was about as tall as I was, maybe a little bit taller. And so it wasn't safe. And at that point, the lead teacher had walked over and said, "What do we do when we want to climb a tree?" And the students all yelled out, "We ask a grown-up." And then the lead teacher said, "How high can we climb?" And the students put up their hands, above their head like this, and they said, "That high." And the teacher said, "Yep, as high as I can reach your tummy. In other words, like as high as she can reach up to get them by their tummy to help them down if they needed help down. And so she walked over to the student that was on the branch. She called him by name and she said, "This is too high." She said, "See, I can't even reach you to help you down. You're taller than I am. So this tree is unsafe. This is a climbing tree, or this climbing tree is," what did she say? "A climbing tree that high is an after-school tree," implying that, and she said, "It's an after-school tree, a tree that you climb when your parents are around." So implying that that is an unsafe level to be climbing. Anyway, so teachers did a really great job of connecting with students, I felt like. And they did that by calling them by name. They did that by really engaging with the students. At one point, one of the students asked a teacher for something to play with. So mind you, in this field, when they all got started out, there was only 2 balls to play with. There was 2 like rubber bouncy balls to play with, and a tree and a field to play in. And so the students did a really great job of finding ways to play with those balls. They were playing pass, they were playing soccer, they played tag. And at one point, one of the students came over to the lead teacher and said, "Hey, can I have something to play with?" And the teacher responded with, "Let's play Guess What's in My Fanny." So she had a fanny pack on. And she told the student, "Okay, close your eyes. I'm going to take something out of my fanny pack and I'm going to put it inside my sleeve like this," right? Sorry, I have my robe on. I'm going to put it in my sleeve like this. And I want you to put your hand in my sleeve and I want you to feel what's in there. And then tell me, describe what's in there. And so the student did that. And the teacher said, "Do you feel it?" And the student said, "Yeah." She said, "What shape is it?" And the student said, "It's a circle." And the teacher said, "What's it made of? Is it made of plastic or is it made up of something from nature?" And the student said, "Nature." And the teacher said, "Well, what do you think it is?" And I can't remember what the student had said, but it ended up being this round, it was like a coaster. It was like a round piece of branch, like cut off branch, like maybe this thick, or it was like a medallion or something. And so the student was completely content with that. And then the student asked to play with the teacher. And so she went and found something in the ground and she put it in her sleeve and she asked the teacher to play with her, and the teacher totally did. And it was awesome. And they went back and forth a couple of times and the student was done. And so she went off and she ran off playing. During this time, the kids were playing soccer and in a different part of the field, and they were kind of running a little too close to the gravel road. And there weren't a lot of cars driving around, but one of the assistant teachers hollered over to turn it around, and the students, they immediately stopped. She said, "Too close, turn it around." And they stopped playing soccer and they turned around and they started heading towards the middle of the field. I thought that was really cool. Normally a student at their age, because this is like between 2 and 6 years old, normally students at that age wouldn't be so responsive, and they wouldn't, I just don't feel like students their age have that level of executive functioning where they can, kind of refrain themselves as quickly as they did and pivot. But they did. And so then they were all playing soccer together, and some of the students were having a hard time because they weren't getting the ball. And so the teacher had overheard some bickering, and she immediately walked over there and she said, "Hey guys, please come here." And they all stopped playing and they all turned towards her and they went over and she said, "Do you remember the rules from yesterday about passing?" And and they all, they all kind of chimed in, and they were all talking about the rules of playing soccer and how passing is sharing. As soon as she said that, it was like, as soon as she said the rules about passing, they all started, wanting to pass and wanting to share with each other. And I thought that was just, it was so simple. It was cool. She was so attentive and gentle and respectful. And nobody was in trouble. And I just thought that that was really awesome. At about that time, the teacher hollered out, "Hoo-hoo!" Like really loud over the field. And all the students just stopped and they like ran towards her and they gathered up in a group, and she asked them to, get in line, single file line. And they all got into the single file line. And she looked at her watch and she said, "Okay, guys, we've got about 5 minutes before we have to go line up and head to base camp. So I'm putting the timer on. Once the timer goes off, we're going to head over and go to base camp." And so she put her timer on in front of them and she said, "Okay, go play." And they all went and they kind of did their own thing. And they were all playing, and one of the kids came up to me, and they were playing tag. She was playing tag with another student, and I was the base. And she came up and she asked me questions. So I got a little distracted because she was talking to me. Super cool kid. She was actually one of the kids that, as I walked up to the group, she ran over and held on to the teacher's hand. It was pretty apparent that she was nervous about who I was. And I had been there at that point when she started using me as base for tag. I had been there for a solid 20 minutes. And so she had gotten to, she had acclimated herself and knew that I was trustworthy. But I thought that was cool. She went directly to the teacher and just held the teacher's hand, and the teacher was busy like walking around and talking to the other students, and just kind of kept doing that while she held this student's hand, and wasn't really fazed, and the student felt that secure connection with her. That was really neat. After 5 minutes went by, the assistant teacher told the lead teacher that the timer went off, and the lead teacher did the hoo call again out loud, and all the children gathered up and or started gathering up. But one child was like, "I'm already here." And I thought it was so cool because the teacher was like, "That means you get the first high five," And then another student walked up and she said, "You get the second high five." And then another student walked up, "You get a third high five," and "You get the fourth high five." And she did it until she got through all 10 students, and she said she had everybody count off at that point. She was like, "I gave out 10 high fives. Let's see, who gave me the first high five?" And that student said, "1. I did." And she said, "Okay, you're number 1." She said, "1." And then the next student, she said, "Who's number 2?" And they said 2. And they went all down the line. So each of them got to count, 1 through 10. They each got to count their number through 10. I thought that was pretty cool too. And 2 kids were, before they had come over and counted off and given high fives, they were still over by one of the big trees. And one of the teachers went over there and said, "Hey, girls, when you hear that sound, what does that mean?" She was talking about the hoo, and they said, "It's time to round up." And so when they got over there, they added into the high fives too. And so as everybody was all gathered up, she goes, "Where my coyotes at?" That's what the lead teacher said, and I thought that was cool. And they all go, "Howl!" And they put up the silent coyote, the quiet coyote signal. But they all howled for a really long time, and then they stopped. And they all stopped together, and then the teacher started speaking. That was so awesome, that they knew. And this is like the end of the year, right? So they've all been together pretty much the entire school year. But they knew what it meant when she said, "Where my coyotes at?" And so there's all these different rules, right, that these kids follow, but they're all things that I noticed were just continually reinforced with respect and with love and with so much patience. And it just seemed like the area that they were all playing in was was such a big enough area. Like, you didn't see a lot of bickering, you didn't see a lot of fighting, like over this or that. I mean, it was open-ended play. Like, there was only 2 balls to play with, and the rest was just up to the kids, to figure out. Anyway, the instructions for the kids when they all gathered together, during Silent Coyote, was to grab their, head over to the starting point or to the wagons, grab their gear, and then go over to base camp, which was just a short walk away. And it was at the trailhead. It was at the trailhead of this preserve, right, of this park. And so all the students started gathering everything up. They all put their backpacks on. And one student was like, hey, I need help. And the lead teacher was busy talking to the other students and helping everybody get their bag on. And she hears and is like, I'm happy to help you. And the student says, can you put my water bottle in my backpack? And the teacher responded with, I can, but I'd like to keep the water bottles together in the bucket. Or would she say, I can, but I'd like to keep, I'd like to keep water bottles together in the bucket. Will you go put it away? And the student was like really chill about it, and went and put it away, and then everybody got packed up, and they had all already started forming a line, as if they knew what they were doing and where they were going. They all started forming a line, and the teachers grabbed the wagons, and one of the teachers said, oh, hey, I really like your jacket. Is that a new jacket? To one of the students. And the student was like, yeah, I just got it. She's like, oh, I really like it a lot. It's really nice on you. And, just compliments and not like praise for doing the right thing, but just like, validation that making the good choices that they were making was approved of, anyway. So we took a short walk up to base camp, which was, about a 5-minute walk. And one of the students, probably one of the youngest students, was really struggling, like trailing behind, just kind of lingering. And I was in the back of the line, just kind of observing everything. And the student was just, just taking his sweet time. And it was, we had to walk right alongside of the gravel road. And so it was kind of it wasn't, it was safe enough area. There wasn't a lot of traffic, but there was definitely, a routine that needed to be followed and rules that needed to be followed. So we stopped, the line stopped, and the teacher said, hey, so-and-so, hey, friend, I want you to come and lead the line. Why don't you come up this way? And so that student was like, oh, yeah. And I told him, I was like, oh, you get to be the leader of the line today. That's awesome. Can you show me what that looks like? Because he still hadn't really picked up on what he was supposed to be doing. And so as soon as I had said, can you show me what that looks like? He like ran to the front of the line, and he was the leader. And so we ended up going up to base camp, where there was a porta potty and a canopy. And because it was raining, they were all going to huddle under the canopy, and it was snack time and story time. And so each kid, at one point there was 3 teachers in the field. The first teacher that went out into the field when we first got out there, when I was first out there, ended up leaving early and driving her car up to base camp. So when we got up to base camp, she was already up there and ready to help students use the bathroom. So each student was taken to the bathroom. They went potty, and then they washed their hands from like one of those big, huge Gatorade like water holders. I don't know what you call it. But it was just some cold water, and they had some soap, and they, helped the students wash their hands, go potty, wash their hands. And then the students ended up congregating underneath the canopy, and they all kind of got into a circle, like a half open circle. And one of the teachers was sitting under the canopy in the corner with a book. And the other teacher went in and handed out some snap peas. And the students were just sitting there, eating snap peas and getting ready to listen to a story. And by this time, an hour, it was about an hour that I had been there. And I was watching the students, and they were, in order to pass out the snap peas, they opened up a package of snap peas, and the teacher took one and then passed it to the next child, and that student took one and passed it to the next child, and they did a really good job of, serving themselves, and then it was time to read a story, and so they all got cozy, and students were able to drink water if they needed to drink water, and the time it took for them all to use the bathroom and sit down and get settled for a story, it was about 20 minutes or so, and I was there for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, something like that, before I ended up having to go. And so I didn't get to go on the hike with them. I would have loved to have gone, but I learned that they sleep in cots outside during rest time, and during that time that the littles are resting, the older kids are doing some kind of guided assignment. And actually, when we got up to base camp, one of the students that was kind of trailing behind, I was talking to the lead teacher, Heather, and we got up there, and she had asked that student, like, hey, do you want to show Alex, teacher Alex, what plant teacher, what one of the plant teachers taught you yesterday? And it was so cool. This kid gets down on the ground and he picks this wild pineapple something or other. I can't even remember the name of the plant. And he tells me about this plant, and it's, it's a weed, but it's like you can pick it, clip it, and turn it into a really fragrant, pineapple-y, fragrant tea, herbal tea. It was really cool. And I found that they teach the kids in Lishitsu, I don't know how to pronounce that, one of the native languages from one of the local tribes, and they teach them in Spanish and English. So not everything is taught in those three languages, but they do, when they do learn about being good stewards of the land and learn about, different plants and stuff, they teach the kids about, some of the sacred practices that the tribes have, the traditions that they have with certain plants and locations and animals and stuff, and they teach them those names in their native language, and it's really cool. I also learned that they're contracted with the state, and so if somebody has is allotted childcare through Working Connections, they can actually they can use those resources towards childcare at Four Springs preschool. Yeah, it's really cool. Four Springs Forest School. Anyway, that's it. That was my experience. It was awesome. Heather was really, really gracious and offered to have me come back out anytime, kids in tow if I needed. And man, Alexis, if I was going to continue this path in childcare, what Heather White's doing is so dope. It is so progressive and so inclusive. And the level of executive functioning that I saw these kids, oh, my son is very upset. The level of executive functioning skills that these kids had at the age ranges that they were in was just, I was in awe. And I really attribute it, I think a lot of it has to do with the environment, just being open and out there, and the attentiveness and the love and the patience that the teachers were providing these kids. Yeah, it was really great. I really think you should go check it out. It was totally worth the 40-minute drive from my place, and I will likely go back out this summer, just to the preserve. And if she has class, I might piggyback on her day with my kids, just because it was awesome. Anyway, thanks for every opportunity you gave me this quarter to learn about early childhood. My son's melting down, so I gotta go. Thanks.